Right now, Novo Nordisk is going through it. We are seeing different concerns coming up for this company, whether it's tariff concerns going on with the macroeconomy or even analysts coming out and downgrading the stock. It seems like there are a lot of reasons to sell. And that is why Novo Nordisk in just the last few days has gone down by over 10%. But if you're a retail investor, you need to be smarter than selling off into this weakness. This type of weakness, at least for me, is where I feel most comfortable buying. So, what I want to do in this video is I want to talk about what is going on with the company and where my price target is a year from now, because I think in the long run, this is a company that retail investors can make a lot of money in. But of course, this is not financial advice, so make sure to do your own research. The first thing I want to start off by talking about is the news that came out last week. Trump is discussing putting tariffs against pharmaceutical companies. On Thursday of last week, Trump posted on Truth Social that starting October 1st, 2025, we will be imposing a 100% tariff on any branded or patented pharmaceutical products, unless a company is building their pharmaceutical manufacturing plant in America. The big question mark around this statement was how is Trump defining is building, which he later went on to say that is building will be defined as breaking ground and or under construction. There will therefore be no tariffs on these pharmaceutical products if construction has already started. And clearly, this creates a problem for Novo Nordisk because not only is the company headquartered in Denmark, but they also produce all of their Ozempic and Wegovy products within the country. But this problem will hopefully just be short-lived because Novo Nordisk back in June of this year announced that they had a $4.1 billion plan to construct a second GLP-1 fill and finish plant within North Carolina. Hopefully before tomorrow, someone at Novo Nordisk takes a shovel out back behind this plant and starts breaking ground, because the good thing about all of this is Novo already owns the land. They already have a facility in Clayton, North Carolina, where they plan to add these additional lines. They're adding more than 1,000 jobs to this location, and this is exactly what Trump is trying to achieve. So I think it's very likely that Novo will not be impacted by these tariffs. The difficult part about large-scale manufacturing projects such as this is figuring out engineering design. However, with Novo announcing this 3 months ago, I would guess that they have likely started a lot of that engineering design prior to them making this announcement, which has given them some time to actually figure out what they're looking for from these lines, from this manufacturing facility. And likely, I would guess if they haven't broken ground already, they are very close to breaking ground. And something else to consider with all of this is with Novo building these manufacturing sites, one of their biggest competitions has been different manufacturers outside of the US selling their products for cheaper within the United States. And that is something that this actually could address. We could see these drug prices from other countries, specifically China, increase significantly and making Novo's product a lot more competitive. That would likely take some slight adjustments from Trump's original statement because he plans to roll out these tariffs against branded and patented pharmaceutical products. However, I could see him reaching this out even further to some of these other pharmaceutical companies that are producing their drugs at a massive scale in low-cost countries like China. Whenever bad news comes out about a company, the analysts are there very quickly after adjusting their price targets as well as their ratings of those stocks. And that is exactly what we have seen this past Monday from Morgan Stanley. One of their analysts came out and downgraded Novo Nordisk from a hold to an underweight or a sell. Along with this analyst downgrading the company, they also have dropped their price target from $59.56 down to $47.02. And there are two primary reasons why this analyst has chosen to downgrade the stock. The first being that they do not believe that the company is going to be able to produce a semaglutide that is effective in treating Alzheimer's disease. In my opinion, this is a non-factor because the whole thing with the pharmaceutical industry and the whole reason that patents exist is so companies like Novo Nordisk, like Eli Lilly, don't have a ton of competition come into the market right away and steal their market share and their margins. Because if they did, it would make no sense for them to spend any money on R&D. They would just look to copy other companies right away. And the whole thing with the pharmaceutical industry is these companies need to make money on these drugs to start funneling that money towards additional developments. And right now, they have just really started addressing the market for weight loss with Wegovy and with Ozempic. So they don't need an Alzheimer's treatment right away. That would be great. If they come out with one, that would be very significant and it would be an overall positive, but they don't need one for their numbers to go up over the next couple of years. The other factor that this analyst is concerned about is the US government cutting some of their price support for Ozempic. And again, in my opinion, I think that this is not really a major concern. Yes, the administration has talked about some of these alignments, trying to align drug prices in the US with those that are seen in Europe. But I think over time, what is going to happen is we're going to see an equalization of those two numbers in between the current numbers. So the US might drop a little bit, but I think Europe is likely going to come up to kind of match and equalize those two things off. The other factor with all of this is insurance companies, I think, will start developing better pricing to actually include Ozempic as well as Wegovy into their plans and start covering a lot more of those drugs for consumers. And the other side to all of this is if Novo Nordisk is successful at making an oral treatment for obesity, that should also increase demand. So all of these different factors I think could play out in Novo Nordisk's favor and actually benefit the company over the next couple of years. So in my opinion, what is going on right now with Novo Nordisk is we're seeing all this negative sentiment stack up on top of the company. And analysts are taking that and blowing it even further out of proportion. The company themselves gave an outlook in this most recent earnings announcement of revenue growth for 2025 of 8 to 14%. I think that they are sandbagging those numbers because this quarter they grew by 16% or 18% on a constant currency basis. To put that a little more into perspective, right now analysts are expecting the company to grow their revenue in 2025 by 8.33%. So if the company right now is growing by 16% in the first half of the year, that basically means that they would have to put up 0% growth in the back half of the year. And obviously anything is possible, but if we look at the last two quarters of 2024, we can see that in the third quarter, they put up $10.5 billion of revenue. That is lower than the first two quarters of this year, and I anticipate the third quarter of this year, Novo Nordisk will outperform the numbers that they put up in the third quarter of 2024. The difficult quarter is going to be the fourth quarter of 2024 because they put up record numbers. They had a revenue of $12.26 billion, and that could be a little bit more difficult for them to achieve. But honestly, with the trend that we've seen the last couple of quarters, I think that Novo could potentially put up a very similar number to that fourth quarter of 2024. It would be zero growth year over year, but over the course of the full year of 2025, they would see very strong growth. I personally think that the lowest growth that we will see from Novo Nordisk in terms of their top line numbers for 2025 is 10%, and that would equate to around $46.5 billion. And if you're looking even further out to 2026, I think analyst numbers kind of just start getting ridiculous because 6.6% growth for Novo's top line in 2026 to me is just insane. If we think about this oral diet pill that is coming out for the company and the demand that that should generate, I just think that 6% growth is incredibly low. I think they should at least be in double digits. Maybe 8% is fair for 2026 if things just slow down and go wrong for the company. However, 10% to me should be doable. Anything less than that is underperformance for the company. But of course, if you are investing in the stock market, you want to make sure that you build in some sort of margin of safety when you make an investment. So let's take a look at what analysts are expecting. So for 2026, they have an average EPS estimate of $3.96. That would only be 5.32% growth year over year in terms of their EPS numbers. And overall, at that point, I think a 15 to maybe a 20 PE ratio is reasonable for the company. And what that would yield in terms of a stock price is anywhere between $60 and $80 per share. If the stock were to go up to that $80 per share, that would still be a 45% return from the current share price of about $55 per share. However, in my opinion, I think Novo Nordisk could realistically put up $4.15 of EPS. That would be 10.37% growth year over year. And at that point, they should easily trade in line with the rest of the market between a 20 and a 25 forward PE. And that would result in a stock price between $80 and $100 per share. And I think that 100 is definitely achievable for this company, especially if they are seeing solid top line growth into 2026 as well. But of course, none of this is financial advice. Make sure you are doing your own research and understanding the risks that you are taking before you invest into a company. This is the YouTube portfolio. Right now, it is sitting at a total value of just over $80,000. And of course, within this portfolio, I do hold Novo Nordisk. I have 45 shares for a total market value of just under $2,500. And I'm up only 1.5%. I'm totally fine with that. This has given me a little bit of time to actually build out this position. And as it dropped back down, I ended up buying more, and I could see myself adding more to this position over the next couple of months. However, right now I am a little bit low on cash. I only have about $1,500 in cash, so I'm kind of holding on to that. I'm also considering reducing some other positions to potentially build this one out a little bit more. As you may know, if you've followed the channel for a little bit, I am very bullish on the healthcare industry over the next year. So I think adding more money into Novo is going to help the portfolio outperform. But like I said, that is all just my opinion. Let me know down below your thoughts. Do you hold Novo in your portfolio? And what is your price target of where you think the stock is going to be by the end of 2026? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. While you're down there, drop a like on the video and subscribe for more videos like this one. And as always, have a wonderful rest of your day.